Okay.
Okay. All right. Everything should be ready to roll right now here. Gonna give it a while. Takes a while in this OBS for some reason, and we are gone. We are ready, folks. We are booming. That's for shizzle, man. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Arknolia and the Doctor, and this is episode 7 of our TV Memory series. And as you know, we are taking a second look, actually, our continuation of our look over the one that considered one of the greatest science fiction franchises in that genre. Of course, we're speaking of the Twilight Zone. We're taking a look at the original series there, a continual of our discussion on that, as well as our thoughts and opinions about the reboots and the including the one that's on CBS All Access with Jordan Peele as the host there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of went through most of season 1 and 2, sort of. We
Yes.
obviously skipped quite a few episodes, but
Yeah, that's true there. Yeah.
just kind of picked and choose as we went.
hmm
But
That's true.
there's still some worth mentioning. But,
Yes.
well, actually, overall, except for a few episodes, a lot of them are worth mentioning.
Yeah. I know that before I understand, the second season was the one with all the good stuff in there featured there, if I'm correct.
Yeah. And there's some episodes that, if you see them, they'll stick in your mind pretty much forever, uh, for the most part.
hmm Yes.
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of pick one out of season
hmm
3 called The Grave,
I'm
which,
looking at it right now.
which is kind of about an outlaw that got killed before a gun for hire guy came to get him, and the guy claimed, "Oh, I'm not afraid. I would have got him." And the guy said, "Okay, here's a knife. Go stick it in his grave."
Ah.
And so that night he went there to stick the knife in the grave, and basically he was confronted by the guy's sister, and he kind of went on into the grave, and he kneeled there and stuck the knife in, and as he starts to leave, he's basically pulled back, and the next day they found his body, and they were saying, "Oh, well, yeah, he did stick the knife in there." And the guys looked and said, "Oh, wait, he stuck the thing through his coat tail," and all that did was make him think that the guy was pulling him in.
Oh.
And then the sister says, "But the wind was blowing from the opposite direction."
Oh. So what he did doesn't really count for what they were trying to get him to do.
Yeah, basically, the premise they were trying to make was that the grave did pull him in.
Ah.
Yeah,
s- I see now. So basically, the guy was supposed to accomplishment, but did he actually did?
yeah.
So and this was to get into some club, I guess it was, from what I'm being told here.
No, actually, it was just to prove he wasn't a coward and that he would
I
have gonna.
see that. We've seen that many times before and today.
Yeah, another one in the
Trying
third
to
season.
prove that they're brave, to other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another one in the third season is a very famous episode. It's a Good Life. It's about a little boy with extraordinary powers that basically controls the town, and what he likes and he doesn't like is what happens. And being a little boy, it's weird stuff. And the people are all controlled by this kid. And essentially, it's the story about how he controls everything and how everybody's afraid of the boy. They don't want to cross him in any way.
Kind of like what you just stated at that one episode in the Twilight Zone movie.
Yeah, it's pretty much similar. I don't know if it's a continuation or what it is, but or remake.
or a predecessor to the story in the movie there. Either way,
Yeah, but essentially that's an episode worth watching.
all right.
And there's another one called Death's Head Revisited.
Can I say this for a second there? Kind of like some, I guess that episode, kind of like impl kind of implicates the entitlement that a lot of people are expecting nowadays.
Yeah,
When you see all these people out there, screaming and hollering, oh, I demand this, I demand that, and I'm sure we heard a lot of it, whether it's health care, whether it's more pay, it's more this, more that. It kind of like well, no, they sound like they're entitled to something. They're entitled to this. They're entitled to that, even though it's somebody else's money, even though it's somebody else's property, or a car or a TV set there.
right.
What that boy in that episode pretty much sums up the symbol of the entitlement issue that has been spoken about for the past 6 or 7 years in TV shows, politics, and everything else. And I think that boy in that episode pretty much sums up the entitlement. I get what I want, or else somebody pays for it, and everybody fears me, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah.
Next episode I want to kind of talk about is Death's Head Revisited, which is about a former Nazi captain who was in charge of a death camp, going
Yes.
back to kind of visit it, and he basically kind of hides who he is, and then he goes to the camp and he walks around thinking, "Oh boy, this was the fun days for me," and just
Oh
kind
yeah.
of does that bit, and then he kind of sees a guy that was a former inmate there, uh, that he just figured, oh, this is a caretaker,
Ah.
and basically he kind of goes over stuff with the Nazi guy, and basically he keeps going him back, and the guy kind of mocks him and such, and then he finds it. Well, he discovers later uh, that the guy had actually died in the camp, and he's seeing a ghost.
Oh wow. Interesting. Sounds like the ghost is trying to haunt the former Nazi, trying to make him feel bad for what all the atrocities that he committed during that time.
Yeah, it's basically he says this is not hatred, this is retribution.
Oh.
This is not revenge. This is justice. But this is only the beginning, Captain. Only the beginning. Your final judgment will come from God. And
Oh.
then later they find this guy in the camp, and he's taken to a mental institution because he's basically, well, he's gone crazy.
Oh wow. And this is the neo-Nazi, right? They're going through this now.
Yeah,
Wow.
but that's another episode that's worth.
Retribution. Yeah, Big Mama Karma. There is retribution, and he paid. Well, he didn't exactly paid with by dying, but he paid for it by losing his mind.
He might as well have died.
Yeah, and probably died probably because it has been said that people with dementia do often die because the brain is no longer able to function as it is. That's what I understand.
Yeah. The next one's worth talking about is, well, they all are, but we'd be here all day if we did that. Uh,
Yeah.
the the Still Valley. It's about Confederate armies that during the Civil War,
Yes.
they're on a bridge of a hill and they have to go scout the Union Army that's all in the town below the, the valley. And he suddenly hears that the sound stops. So he decides to look in there and see what's going on. He gets down there and everybody is frozen. All the Union Army guys are just frozen. And
Ice solid, right?
yeah, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And he runs across this guy
Wow.
that basically says, "Hey, I'm a witch man," and he used a magic spell to freeze the soldiers.
Mm.
And essentially, the guy tells him essentially that he could stop the entire Union Army in this matter and assure the success of the Confederacy. He asks him why he doesn't, and the guy replies that he is dying, and he gives the book of spells to the Confederate guy, encouraging him to use it. But when Paradigm looks into it, he realizes that using this magic requires one to align himself with Satan.
Oh boy.
Okay, the guy dies, and the guy returns to the camp, tells his people about it, and his superiors don't believe him, and they encourage him to get rest. And then another scout comes up and says, "Hey, it's true." They say, "Wow, this could be something." And essentially, that if they use the book, it requires not only must he praise the devil's name, but he must also renounce the name of God. And they said that, well, you know what? We can't do this. This isn't worth it. If we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. And they burned the book.
Uh, which nowadays is against the law.
Right.
Hmm. But then again, anything involving satanic stuff, just get rid of it. Cast it out, bury it in the ground, let it be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking about this one episode right now that I'm not too sure if it was this season or the following season or the previous season. See if you can help me out there. I remember this one episode, and it featured a singer, Jimmy or Johnny, something there. He here's this young lady in the South area, one of the Southern states area, and singing this song, and he wants to buy the rights to it. Wants to give her money to perform it, and she says, it's unable. You cannot do that. For good reason there. And this guy's like considering, trying to try to do his best to purchase the song from this gal, but she keeps saying, can't do it. Sorry,
Yeah, I
it's a
remember that
traditional song.
episode, but I
And
don't
yet here's
remember
these
what the reasoning was.
why those guys, why the hillbillies out there wanted to kill him for some reason.
Yeah.
That's one thing I was going to ask about that. Why all of a sudden was that something that they just added in to make it more suspenseful, or was there a reason that this guy did something to them
Well, there's
years
something that,
before or whatever, and they forgot?
and I'm trying to remember what the deal was in that, but yeah, I remember that episode, and there was something about the
Yeah,
song that the guy couldn't buy
yeah,
it.
that's true.
And
Yeah,
we can get to it a little later if I find it.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely. Because I'm still trying to figure out why in the world would these the hillbillies in that area there would want to kill him dead.
yeah. And then one of my favorite episodes was one that was titled "To Serve Man."
Hmm.
It's about these really tall aliens that came to Earth and offered to do a lot of things, eliminate hunger, eliminate war, all of that stuff that they did. And they
Uh-huh.
went to the United Nations and told them that, hey, yeah, we're going to do all of this for you. And of course, they were all skeptical. But
Didn't
basically,
believe it.
given time, the aliens did just exactly that. They showed them a way to create lots of food, how to eliminate wars, and do a lot of things humanitarian. And in the meantime, they had left their book there at the center, and they gave it to these cryptographers to try and decipher it and see what it was. And the best they could do is they translated the title, and the title was "To Serve Man."
Yes.
And basically, with all the good stuff going on, they were saying, "Oh, okay, this book tells us how we can serve man." And they started exchanging, like people were going to the planet these guys were from, and other people were coming from that planet. And the main cryptographer decided, you know what, I'm going to go visit this planet. So he gets in line and gets toward the ship, and he's going on the ship. And the other girl comes over there real quick and says, uh, "Don't go on the ship. Don't go on the ship." The guy says, "Why?" He says, "We translated the rest of the book. To serve man is a cookbook."
Oh boy.
And so he was going.
Oh shit, dude. Oh man, I get the
You
idea
have
now as a
got to
serve
see that
and
episode
as a
as a
tasty
meal.
dish there.
You've got to watch that episode because that was.
That is like that's about the same, almost nearly the same plot as the. You remember the series V that used to be
Yeah,
on NBC?
yeah,
Kind of like something like that approach there when you think about it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, boy, I hate to be.
That's a cool
I
episode
would
to
hate
watch
to.
though.
That's a shocker. It was like you didn't realize that until the last minute there, until it hits you in the end there.
Yeah, basically it was among the last things. It wasn't the last thing, but it was among the last things.
Oh man,
The next
I
season
wonder
was.
if
Go ahead.
no, I was going to be if there was a sequel to which if these aliens come back to eat them up, they'll try to fight them for some reason with the U.S. Army or Navy or Air Forces or something like that.
They didn't really get into that, but that probably would have been interesting.
You know, because very rarely do we ever see sequels or part twos on any of the episodes of the Twilight Zone. It's just one episode and that was it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way they did things. Now,
Yeah,
the next season was interesting because they went from their half-hour format to an hour format,
yeah.
which is a little harder to fill, but uh, there were some interesting. Well, there were a lot of interesting episodes here too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm looking at some of them right now with the took cool titles in there.
Yeah, and I was trying to find one that would
And
be
and this is the fourth season here, which
right.
ran in 1963 here.
Yeah. Let's see. I think I remember Death Ship as being an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Written by Richard Matheson and directed by Don Medford, and it aired in February of 1963. Yeah. And I'm looking at another episode titled "I Dream of Genie," but the genie is spelled differently, so it's not related to the TV series there.
Oh no, that was one about a guy who finds a genie's lamp and goes through the wish thing with it. You know,
Hmm.
like they did.
Yes.
And the new exhibit was interesting because that was one about a guy who was in charge at the Wax Museum of statues of mass murderers,
Oh, wow.
and they were gonna close down the exhibit or the actually the whole museum. And the guy pleads with him and said, "Oh, I want those figures. Can I have those figures?" Because he had come to, I guess, love them as Jack the Ripper and all these other guys.
Oh, wow.
And essentially, he took them home, put them in his basement. His wife didn't really like that idea of those things being in the basement because he had to keep them cool. They were wax, so they had to put in an air
Yeah.
conditioner
Yeah,
to.
and that does well. That does kind of seem like a creepy. You know, we always hear the references to strange people with how many bodies have in the basement there, and that kind of like fits along with that kind of quote there, that phrase.
Yeah. And basically, all these people that were against him having the figures down in the basement ended up dead. And the guy
Mm.
was like, "Oh, the wax figures killed him and all that." And essentially, after he went through all of that, eventually they reopened the wax museum exhibit and showed those figures again. And they added one, which was that guy, and
Oh,
talked
my.
about how he was a mass murderer now because he had murdered people.
Oh boy, damn. That alone is a trip there.
Yeah. And then there's another one's interesting called "Of Late I'd Think of Cliffordsville." It's about a guy who was a rich guy and he was in his office, and the janitor was there, and he said, "You know what would be fun is relive my life and go through all that again, knowing now what I know. I can make it even better." And suddenly this witch shows up. God, I don't remember. I was trying to remember who played it because it was somebody really famous, and I'm trying to
Hmm.
remember who it was. I want to
Let's
say it's
see.
Julie Newmar, but I could be wrong.
Um, the new let me think about it. Let me look it up here. Let's see here. Um, hmm. I see it a little still of it right now. Business Tycoon, originally, I'm clicking it up right now. It aired in April of '63. An elderly sadistic business tycoon buys the opportunity to enjoy amassing his fortune a second time. He'll witness the murder. The narration speaks. The killer is Mr. William Feathersmith, a robber baron whose body composition is made up of refrigerated plant covered by thick skin. In a moment, Mr. Feathersmith will proceed on his daily course of conquest and calamity, I think it is called,
Yeah.
but wed with yet with another business dealing. But this one would be one of those bizarre transactions that take place in an odd marketplace known as the Twilight Zone. And I'm looking for the person who plays the witch there. Let's see that you were talking about here.
Like I said, I think it's Julie
Miss
Newmar.
Miss Devlin. That's the
Well,
lady
that's
that
the name of the character, but
yeah, that's true. Let's see here. It doesn't let's see. I don't think yes, it is Julie Newmar. Holy Caroli.
yeah, I thought it
It
was, but I
is
wasn't sure. She's a
yeah,
very
but
memorable person.
oh yeah. Wow. Never knew that, man. I figure so many actors in that series that we never even I don't think we ever got to see or heard from ever again with the exception of Newmar, Shatner, and Burnett and those people there.
Well, there's actually quite a few people that showed up in these episodes. There was, as a matter of fact, there was another episode that for a long time wasn't shown in
Mhm.
syndication
Yeah.
that was known as Miniature. That the main character in it was Robert Duvall.
Oh wow. Interesting. Interesting there.
Basically, it was about a guy who was in a museum that started fantasizing about this excuse me, little dollhouse, and that he thought they were alive and such. And he keeps going back, going back, going back. They keep chasing him off, and eventually they go to chase him off, and he's not there. And somebody
Mm.
looks in the little house, and he's in the little house
Oh wow.
because he
Well, you
got transposed into it.
you it's kind of like you want to go back to this area there. Well, here's your chance, but the thing is, you cannot leave.
Yeah, I was kind
All
of
right.
glancing through some of these to Jess Bell. That was about a woman who wanted this guy so bad that she decides to become a witch. I said bitch, but I didn't mean bitch. To
That's okay.
basically win the guy because he was in love with somebody else. But part of her thing
Oh,
about being a witch is she would turn into I think it was a panther, and at night,
wow.
and essentially
Hmm.
it was just trying to deal with all of that was what it was kind of about. Starred James Best and Anne Francis were two of the names in the movie.
I think I remember hearing the name Anne Francis a couple of times in the past there.
Yeah, but that's one worth watching.
All right. I'm looking at some of this other stuff here, and of course, season. I'm looking at. Let's see here. I'm already on season 5. Season 4 here. when you talked about there, the wonderful world, the incredible world of Horace Ford there.
Yeah,
Here's
basic.
one there.
Yeah, basically that was about a guy who kept going back to his childhood, and then he realized that that wasn't such a great time, and
Yeah.
essentially, I guess, came back in a sense.
And that starred and it starred a well-known actor we have heard a couple of times before, Pat Hingle.
Yeah. And then another one on Thursday we leave for home is about
Hmm.
people that were shipwrecked on an island on a planet, and they kept thinking, "Oh boy, we're going to get, we're hopelessly marooned." And the captain kept encouraging him, said, "Hey, they're coming for us. They're coming for us. They aren't going to leave us here." And basically, he was in charge and said all the stuff and did everything. And then finally, a ship did show up, and they told everybody, "Yeah, it's good to see y'all. I hope everything's fine. We're going to take you back home and all that." And basically, they told the captain guy, "Hey, don't worry about it. We'll take care of things." And kind of dismissed his power. And essentially, he kept trying to convince the people, "We got things great here. Tell them to go away." And they were like, "No, we want to go home." And they ended up going back home, and he didn't want to go, so he went and hid. And they couldn't find him, but he came out, later all mad and stuff. Says, "Where is everybody?" That kind of thing, because he basically lost his power and figured this was a way to have it back.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting there. Let's see here what we got here. Um, I'm looking at this one here called The Bard, which is which features Burt Reynolds
Yeah,
and
this
John Williams, believe it or not.
yeah, this one was about a guy who figured out a way to bring Shakespeare
Hmm.
back.
A satire of the American television industry. It concerns an in-depth screenwriter who, through the use of black magic, employs William Shakespeare as his ghost writer.
Yeah,
Believe it or not. Jeez, that is something there. And I guess it shows what Shakespeare you originally looked like here, since we see so many interpretations of Shakespeare, whether it's that movie Shakespeare in Love or that one episode of Doctor Who with David Tennant. We see so many of them. It's hard. I think that what they're doing right now in this episode is displaying what he allegedly looked like.
yeah. And then after that failed,
Hmm.
basically they gave him an assignment of doing something on American history.
Yep.
So at the end, he used his book and conjured up Robert E. Lee, Ulysses S. Grant, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, and Pocahontas, Daniel Boone, Benjamin Franklin, and Theodore Roosevelt to kind of help him as consultants.
Yeah.
So
Getting it's kind of like getting help from the people who influence him when you look at it there.
yeah, and that was essentially what went on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those
That's
hour episodes are pretty good.
interesting. Yeah, interesting there. And then I don't think I ever knew uh, Burt Reynolds was involved in any of the episode, but then you can never tell. It's the same thing with Law and Order. Who would believe that Adam Driver was who starred in a couple of episodes of the original would later go on to become Kylo Ren of Star Wars fame.
Yeah, but I was trying to see what would be another one that Steel's interesting. It's about robot fighters
Yeah.
that essentially one of them was failing, so the guy took his place because he needed the money.
Uh huh.
And this one starred somebody famous too, and I'm trying to remember who it was.
Let me look it up right now. Let's see. Let's
I want to say
see.
it was Lee Marvin, but I could be
Lee
wrong.
Mar. Yes, Lee Marvin. We know him well. We remember him from all those westerns and action movies around the 70s and 80s. There, He was a starring role in this particular episode here.
Yeah, it's a good episode, and actually, the amazing thing is how many of those kind of people were starring in these episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of them, and I'm sure we missed a few.
Yeah, I know. There was a lot of them. Who knows? They have to go through the whole 5 seasons to find out which is which there, who became a household name years afterwards.
And another one is, well, heck, I forgot the name. Hang on, Living Doll. This
Mm.
one had Telly Savalas in it,
Oh, wow.
and basically, it was about a woman that bought her daughter a little doll. Oh, it was a wind-up
Yes.
doll named Talky Tina. That
Hmm.
it was basically to comfort her, and her catchphrase was, "My name is Talky Tina, and I love you very much." And
Mm.
she had recently remarried to a bad guy, basically, and
Yeah.
he essentially,
Infertile,
yeah,
basically.
yeah, and he basically he directed a lot of his hostility on the little girl,
Yeah.
and basically what ends up happening is the guy winds up the doll, and instead of the catchphrase, it hits him with "I don't like you" and things
I'm
like that.
reading it right now. You're an asshole. You're a jerk, and those kind of phrases there.
Well,
If I'm
obviously
correct.
they didn't use those back then,
I know, but
but yeah,
but you get the idea where we're going here with this.
yeah,
It's basically the Dow telling this old guy off, saying that, hey, you're a jerk, you're an SOB.
yeah, and essentially later he goes out of the room and he goes down the stairs and he trips over the doll lying on one of the treads and falls down and dies.
Oh wow! And
And
also keep in mind, it's also the Dow during the episode. The Dow becomes more engaging with this guy in a more elaborate conversation. And later, the guy comes to the conclusion that it was Annabelle, the woman, the mother of the Christine, is playing a trick to get back at him for his treatment of Christine. He
yeah,
places the doll in a trash can, but then he receives a phone call, hears the doll's voice threatening to kill him. Check at the trash can. It finds it's empty. He confronts Annabelle, but she pleads innocent. It occurs to Eric, the guy there, the guy's man, the guy's name there, I meant to say, my bad. Since his wife was upstairs putting Christine to bed, she could not possibly made the phone ring.
right.
Yeah.
And when Annabelle finds Eric at the foot of the stairs, she finds the doll down there with him, and she
Mhm.
picks it up and it says, "My name is Talky Tina, and you'd better be nice to me."
Oh,
So essentially, the curse lingered a little bit longer.
wow, that was something there. I'm reading that wrong. Annabella drops the doll in horror, now realizing that her husband had been telling the truth.
Yeah,
Yeah, massive trip there. But it kind of like states, it kind of like has a little statement there, how children should be treated, when you think about it. Now, the
yeah,
guy, now the man of the episode, Eric, he was, I guess, a stepfather, or was he
yeah. He
the
was a
real father?
stepfather.
Yeah, that's and regarding how we often, excuse me, how we often hear about step parents, treating with their hostile treatment of one's kids that they are dating. They're in love with this woman or this man, but they have a hostility towards their kids for some reason.
Yeah, it's just
And and yeah, I guess this kind of like teaches a lesson, like not necessarily you could get killed by some doll or cursed by one, but it's the idea, like something could happen to you, karma, as we all know. It's basically focuses on how step parents treat their stepkids.
yeah.
to be nice to them.
Now, in this season, they had a an episode that was basically a teleplay that came from France called An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. That
Hmm.
essentially, if you can find it, because they don't show it in syndication, uh, you could there is DVDs and such out on that have it on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I'm looking on it right now. It was from a story by Ambrose Bierce, and it was adapted by one Robert Enrico.
Yeah, but basically, it's about soldiers that were fixing to hang a guy. I think it was Confederate,
Yeah.
and essentially
And
they went to the bridge and they stepped him on out to get hung,
mhm,
and they kicked the board out or whatever it is they do, and the
yeah.
guy starts to plummet to his death, and the rope
Wow.
breaks, and he goes underwater, and basically he swims his way out of there and goes home to see his wife, girlfriend, or whatever, and as he's running toward her, it talks about the whole time while he's trying to get over there and such. But as he's running toward her, suddenly he's back, and the rope never
Yeah.
broke.
Wow.
It was all in his mind as he was being hung.
Oh, wow. That's something there. And it was based on a film of the same name.
Right.
It was a French. It was a French short. It was a short film out of France, almost without dialogue. It was based on the 1891 American short story of the same name by Civil War soldier and writer Ambrose Bierce. It was
Right.
directed by Robert Enrico and produced by Marcel. I don't know if the name is spelled here, or how it's pronounced Ichac.
Yeah, well, it's French names. Those are not easy to
Yeah, it's true.
pronounce.
It won. Yeah, I know. It also won awards at both the Cannes Film Festival and the Academy Awards. It also screened, as of course, as on the Twilight Zone, as we mentioned there.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
like I said, it's not normally in the syndication package. It might be now. I don't know. But it wasn't a part of the syndication package.
I see. Maybe because of the copyright of the story, possibly. Who knows?
Possibly so. I'm not really sure on that one, to be honest.
Because a lot of these things are copyrighted by producers and businessmen and such and such, and who knows? They can have like you can make an episode of this, but you cannot include it on any particular collection on DVD or home video.
Yeah, and actually, like I said, you could find at one time this one, miniature, the one I mentioned before, and one we're fixing to talk about called The Encounter, were not in syndication. I don't know why on the miniature, but The Encounter was not there because people felt like it had racist overtones.
Oh wow!
But you can find that one on DVD. Uh, but essentially, what it is a guy's in his attic going through. He was an American World War II vet, going through his attic, and he found an old antique samurai sword,
Mm.
and he had a young Japanese American that was George Takai
Oh wow!
coming in to look for
Mr.
work.
Sulu, yeah,
Yeah, he
interesting.
was coming in to look for work, and essentially they had a lot of things happen between them because the guy was still, upset about the Japanese, and of course, the other guy was Japanese American, but he was,
Uh-huh.
and essentially they basically spent the episode fighting with each other, and they at the end they all ended up dying. Both of them ended up dying.
Oh wow! Now I'm looking at this one episode and can kind of relate. I can kind of relate to this, because I have one of these in my closet, and of course I was also a fan of most alien movies at that time, including Doctor Who. Well, that's a TV series, but
Right.
this one episode is called Black Leather Jackets. It was episode 138 of the Twilight Zone here. Three aliens disguised as young men wearing leather jackets encounter a link in their plan to exterminate humankind when one of them falls in love with a human girl.
Yeah.
That's something right there. Yeah. We've seen this many times, a couple times before in various movies up there. They're out to do this, or these group of people, but one of them falls in love with a human, and they decide cannot do this. We need to stop this, and that's about it, I guess. And
Yeah.
there's a whole conflict that comes along as well. And that's we've seen that multiple times in the past in storylines. That's kind of funny is that having aliens wearing the leather jackets because I wear their, as I mentioned, I have a leather jacket I've been worn in a long time. I should probably do that sometime when me and my sister or I go out by myself and such there.
Right.
Hmm. And, and I'm looking at this one called that starred Jackie Cooper called Caesar and Me. It
Oh
started,
yeah.
yeah. Now, starred Cooper as a ventriloquist, kind of like Edgar Bergen,
Yeah.
and is not to be confused with a similar episode titled "The Dummy" that starred Cliff Robertson.
Right.
He's an unsuccessful ventriloquist. He is broke, keeping valuable keepsakes like his grandfather's watch and a palm to pawnbrokers in exchange for some petty cash. At the boarding house where he lives, he is mercilessly taunted by a little girl for failing to find a job. But unbeknownst to everyone, his evil ventriloquist dummy, Little Caesar, has a mind of its own that talks to him at will, despite Jonathan's reassertions that they are on the verge of a big break. Caesar apparently tells them that they've hit rock bottom, which kind of makes sense they are. But the guy is still trying to be positive. Everybody's trying to lure some reality. I say you're gonna go nowhere. You're over there at the bottom of the barrel, homie. There.
Right.
Now, when the two go to a nightclub for an audition, the performance is not well received. The following day, Jonathan is unable to find employment because of his lack of vocational experience and immigration status. He may soon leave the boarding house because he is behind on his rent.
Right.
Caesar berates Jonathan for being a hopeless clod, but his solution to his money woes he has a reluctant, which is called burglary, breaking into people's houses and stealing things.
Right.
A reluctant Jonathan, with directed by Caesar in his suitcase, breaks into Delhi, steals its money. He uses it to pay his rent, but Caesar, during a conversation overheard by Susan, pressures him into committing more burglaries. And this kind of like has that scenario where the dummy talks to you and gets through things. There was a movie back, I guess, in 1980, 81 called Magic,
Starred
where
Anne
young,
Margaret. Yeah, I remember that.
yep, and it's just a ventriloquist, communicates well with his, dummy there,
Right.
and a couple of crimes are committed just as well, including bashing someone's head in with the dummy. When you think about it, there.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that movie.
Yeah, that's true. I was just thinking about that, and when I was reading the storyline here. Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
There's another episode there called Number 12 Looks Just Like You. It's about basically a futuristic society where they they basically remade people,
They remade people.
essentially where they put their personalities into a different body because they
Wow.
wanted people to all look physically attractive. And you had a
Yeah.
selection of different models, And this one girl was coming up on that, and she decided not to go through with it. And essentially, they kept trying to talk her into it, talk her into it, talk her into it, and then
Course are into it, yeah.
finally, when they do it, they pretty much force it on her,
Wow.
and essentially, she looks and acts exactly like her friend. And she said, the nicest part of it all, Val, I look just like you. Because, they change her personality slightly too.
Kind of like the be one of us and nobody else type of scenario.
Yeah,
We've seen that. How many times have we heard of that happening?
yep, yep,
Change them, trying to change one person into what they want them to be.
yes,
That is something, man. And we, like I said, that still goes on a lot of times today. Whether it's in the schools, colleges, or workplaces, there at times, or or any some sort of a social club. When you think about it, there.
yeah. And essentially, I'm trying to think if I could find another one.
Mm. Okay, I'm looking at a couple here myself. There's one called "I Am the Night, Color Me Black." And Sheriff Koch, played by Michael Constantine, cannot sleep through the night because before an execution of a man, as he feels conflicted about the situation. His wife Ella is no comfort as she snarls, "What time do they string him up? You know what I mean? What time does he get hung?" Her attitude represents the hateful sentiment of the town that looks forward to the fate of Jagger, the man who is supposed to be hung,
Yeah,
and has been after being wrongly convicted of killing a bigot in self-defense, who is unrepentant about the killing. On the day of the execution, the sun does not shine in the morning; it doesn't rise, and it seems that this is the only place in the world where this is true. While there's still some dispute whether the Jagger is guilty or not, the sheriff is conflicted, where the deputy is convinced that the man is guilty. The deputy is accused of perjury by the town news reporter. At 9 a.m., just before the hanging occurs, it is still dark. The radio is now reporting the darkness confined to one small village where this all occurs. The sheriff admits he feels guilty because he didn't question the lack of autopsy of the victim and didn't care if there were any powder burns on the victim, despite the deputy testifying that Jagger shot the victim from across the room. The sheriff wanted to be reelected, and such went along with the status quo.
right.
Go along with this, and you will be
Mm,
reelected. You will earn a lot more votes than such and such. It's proved that you're standing up for justice, like all these prosecutors, all these lawmen. We hear that a couple of times in episodes like Law and Order here.
right.
However, at 9:30 a.m., Jagger is hung anyway, and much to the delight of the town. The town clergyman, although a different faith and race than Jagger, steps in and says that he is thankful to him for having stood up for him in the past. The clergyman reluctantly agrees to the execution, and the deputy says that having gone along with the execution, that the clergyman has seen the light. The clergyman replies that the sky is black because of all the hatred of the world, namely the hatred surrounding Jagger's execution. The sky becomes more darker after the execution, and the deputy is convinced that the darkness is more than a fog, which
Yeah,
eventually will lift. But
right.
neither the sheriff or the reporter are convinced. Later on, a radio broadcast reveals that the town is not the only place where this disturbance is happening. The sky has turned dark over North Vietnam, a section of the Berlin Wall, a political prison in Budapest, a
Yeah.
section of Chicago, Dallas, Birmingham, Alabama, and a section of Shanghai, of all places, where there's lots of hate all around the world.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a strong episode.
yeah, and it makes a statement. Too much hate in the world is making the world black.
Yeah. Another one that was interesting was Stopover in a Quiet Town. About a young married couple that woke up in an unfamiliar house, and basically they had gotten drunk at a party the night before, and essentially they ended up in this house, and they had a large shadow over them, but they discovered the house was mostly props. The telephone has no connection. The cabinetry is merely glued on facing. The refrigerator is filled with plastic food, and just find all kinds of stuff like that.
I
You
think I
know,
know what you're talking about there. I remember this one here.
yeah, and essentially they hear a train coming and they go get on the train, and they thought, oh wow, we'll get out of here, and they rode the train, and when it came to a stop, they found out that they were exactly where they were, which means the train basically went in a circle,
Uh-huh.
and they left the train and decided, well, we're going to walk out of town, and they keep hearing laughter, and then a shadow falls over them, and they flee, only to be scooped up by the hand of a gigantic child.
I remember that. Yep. They sort of became spirits in this little house there, just more miniature.
Yeah, the little girl mother said, "Be careful with your pets, dear. Your father brought them at the all the way from Earth."
Wow. Ah, I see there. That's interesting.
And she put them back in there, and essentially they panned back, and it's a model village.
Wow. That is a trip, man. That is an absolute trip to figure out, man.
Yeah,
Huh. Kind of makes you wonder when you go into these little areas, whether it's an abandoned house or out somewhere in the woods. Makes you wonder, what kind of spirits are out there. Now, I mentioned that I was involved with a thing called Chimere Paranormal throughout most of the summer of 2012. We often investigate the house that we were living at that time. Me and my girlfriend, her oldest son, his girlfriend, and my girlfriend's parents. And
right.
we would hear these take the computer down there and we would record all these EVPs and such while getting videos. So we also get these little dark figures that were not our shadows either a couple times. So it kind of reminds me of that, when you think about it.
Yeah, and the one you were just talking about a while ago,
Yes.
that episode is called "Come Wander with Me,"
Mm-hmm.
and essentially it was as you described it. And at the end, what happens is the guy had supposedly killed somebody, and the brothers of the guy that was killed were coming after him.
Yeah, so I'm talking about. Yeah.
And essentially, the guy was reliving this over and over again. And as he does, it's kind of, well, like I said, it's kind of a prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up dying, but then he gets to relive all of this over again.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's an endless cycle.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's what the deal was on this one.
Wow. And that episode concluded by saying, quote unquote, in retrospective, it may be said of Mr. Floyd Burney that he achieved the final dream of the performer.
Right.
Eternal top name billing, not on the fleeting billboards of the entertainment world, but forever recorded among the folk songs of the Twilight Zone.
Like I said, there's other episodes that are very interesting
Mm-hmm.
that we couldn't possibly uh, talk about all of them because
Mm-hmm.
they're all pretty memorable. But
Yeah, according to the companion book about the Twilight Zone, that role of Mary Rachel in that episode may have been played by Liza Minnelli. She auditioned for that role, but was so nervous that she was sadly turned down.
oh wow,
This was the third to last episode broadcast, and this was the last episode in the series to be filmed. The last original episode to be broadcast would be the witching pool, bewitching pool, and
and
of
that's
course, as
actually an
well.
episode that it's not what you would call a great episode. Basically, it's about two kids that are with a mother and father who are trying to divorce and because they had it with each other. The kids are just nuisances and all that. So they dive into the pool, and when they come back up again, they're in this place with, I forget the name of the woman, but a
Hmm.
little aunt with other children, and essentially they find out, hey, you know what? This is a pretty good
Uh-huh.
place,
Hmm.
and they end up going back because they felt bad about leaving, and they go back and they find out that things aren't any better. The parents are screaming at both of them about how worthless they are and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And finally, they kind of say, you know what? Let's go back to the other place.
I've seen
And
that. I
they
know what you're talking about. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, and they end up diving back in the pool and
Staying there
disappear.
for yep. They say the fuck fuck this. We're sick and tired of your mom and dad fighting. Kind of like you remember the movie Irreconcilable Differences with Ryan O'Neal and Drew Barrymore, in
Yeah,
which the daughter this it was Shelley Long and Ryan O'Neal. They cannot get see eye to eye after they have their child, and the child decides, I'm fine with divorce from my parents. I can't handle this no more. We've seen it many times. There was an episode of The Love Boat where young boy there, decided to go on this cruise by himself, to get away from his parents who were constantly fighting all the time.
yeah. A lot
And
of
it
times,
makes
when a lot of that's going on, you don't realize what you're doing to the kids.
Yeah, exactly. A lot you're so caught up in that moment where you just, you can't realize what is impacting. And that's gonna the children in those kind of situations are gonna grow up believing marriage is a lie. Marriage is something I want to avoid. Avoid love is in general. Superman, Superman 2, Inside Moves, the toy with Richard Pryor, The Goonies, Lady Hawk, Lethal Weapon, the first one, Scrooge with the Bill Murray, a movie called Radio Flyer from '89.
Right.
He did the movie Maverick with Mel Gibson and James Garner. Conspiracy Theory with Julia Roberts. Lethal Weapon 4. Tales from the Crypt Ritual. 16 Blocks. Lethal Final. A couple others as well. So this guy's been very, very, very active, and he's still around. I believe he is age 90 years old right now.
Right.
Yeah. So definitely a credit to him and a credit to the person who wrote the story because that touched up a lot of how kids from divorced families often feel like. And also keep in mind that kids who grow up in a broken households often blame themselves for it because of that persona that mom and dad be better off without me.
Yeah.
You know, and to warn you to all the kids out there who feel like that, it's not your fault. It's mommy, daddy couldn't get their shit together and work it out. That's my advice to those kids out there who are probably adults, as we know. Right. All right.
Uh,
So, any more there, or because
well, it's kind of
when did
going
that?
through them.
Yep. Now, of course, we cannot forget was most famous of them all, with of course that was also directed by Richard Donner, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet.
Yeah.
Starred, of course, William Shatner, who later gained fame as the Captain James T. Turk of the USS Enterprise. And as we all know, that episode was remade for the Zone movie, which starred in its place John Lithgow, and a name change, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, at the ending there would feature, of course, Dan Aykroyd, driving the ambulance and putting on Bad Moon Rising.
No,
No, bad. No, that's right. What was
Midnight
that song?
Shadow. Midnight.
Midnight Special.
Midnight
Thank you. I
Special.
forgot.
Right.
Thank gum, and I forgot about that. I was so fixated on the Bad Moon, but I was thinking of the beginning of it. Believe it or
Right.
not.
But no, that particular scene featured the Midnight Special.
Yeah, I'm all right. Thank you for for correcting me. I always make a boo boo there. Of course, we had one called the Old Man. Did we do the Old Man in the Cave? By the way,
No.
oh, let's look into this one. The episode is a cautionary tale about humanity's greed and the danger of questioning one's faith in forces greater than oneself. Now, in a populated town in the year 1974, it is 10 years after a nuclear war has devastated the U.S. The townspeople had discovered a supply of canned food. However, they're waiting for Mr. Goldsmith, the town's leader, to return with a message from the mysterious and unseen old man in the cave, who will tell them whether the food is contaminated with radiation. Some of the townspeople there wanted to take their chances and eat that food, but they were afraid of doing so after seeing the disastrous harvest yield when they failed to take the old man's advice, which is about farming areas were contaminated because of this nuclear war.
Right.
When Mr. Goldsmith returns, he informs it that the old man has declared the food is contaminated and should be destroyed. A group of soldiers later on, led by a French major, no, excuse me, Major French, my bad, entered the town and clashed with Goldsmith as they tried to establish their authority. The soldiers may or may not be representatives of the U.S. government. Goldsmith claims that they're just that wandering packs of self-styled military men have been previously intruded on the town and have tried to do the same, establish their authority, all
Right.
which were unsuccessful. Major French, however, meanwhile, reveals that there have been about 300 people left alive between New York, Buffalo, and Atlanta, Georgia, and also talks of small, isolated, primitive societies on the shore of Lake Erie in what used to be Chicago. He claimed his job is to organize the region so that society can be rebuilt. However, Goldsmith believes that French and his men simply want to strip the town of its food. A clash of wills ensures, and frustrated by Goldsmith's quiet and steadfast refusal to bend, French tries to dispel the townspeople's strange beliefs about the seemingly infallible old man in the cave and take control of the area. French tempts the townspeople with some of the food Goldsmith claimed was contaminated, and many throw caution to the wind and partake. Everyone except Goldsmith eventually consumes the food, drinks, and Goldsmith falls into disfavor amongst the townspeople. After being bullied and threatened with his life, Goldsmith finally opens the cave door and it is ultimately revealed that in reality, the townsfolk have been using information from a computer from
Yeah.
that whole time.
That's
French rallies the townspeople into a frenzy into destroying the machine, which after into celebrating their newfound freedom from its tyranny. However, as Mr. Goldsmith had insisted, the old man was correct. Without an authority figure to tell them which foods are safe, the entire human population of the town, including Major French and his soldiers, die except for one lone safe survivor, Mr. Goldsmith, who somberly walks out of the now deceased town.
yeah.
Wow.
That couple of Star Trek episodes were kind of similar to that, where it was something controlling the people, and it turned out to be a computer.
Yeah,
There
and
was at least a couple of those.
what we saw from the townspeople of that episode is, overthrowing the government and leading their own self, kind of form of anarchy when you look at it.
Yeah.
This is why all the people out there who preach about anarchy, we need no government, no this, no congressman there. This is why it's not going to work because so many people who try to run things, if it's run by the people or for the people, such and such. However, there's going to be massive screw ups in the systems that follow.
Right.
Yeah. And after seeing, hearing all the stories about anarchy, I'm sorry, to all the people out there, we don't need no government. You're going to need some government, just very little. Bottom line, folks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying. There was another episode, but I can't remember the name of it, and I'm trying to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Essentially, it was about a astronaut, Probe 7, over and out, about
Uh-huh.
an astronaut that crash landed, and essentially he they're trying to figure out a way to get him back, but he finally leaves the ship, and during the time he runs across a lady that was the only thing left in a deserted world, and the guy was Richard Basehart,
Wow.
and the woman was well, I was going to say it's Elizabeth Montgomery, but it wasn't.
Oh, wow.
It was a girl by the name of Antoinette Bauer.
Wow. Lady Antoinette. Kind of
Yeah,
similar.
and essentially they end up there, and they're going to stay there for themselves. So Adam and Eve decide to name this planet Earth.
Mm.
So
That's
essentially,
something.
yeah,
Wow, that's a trip there.
and essentially she offered him a fruit called a sepia, which is a
The apple.
yeah, it was an anagram of the word apple,
Yes.
and that's basically the way they told that story.
Yep. And it's kind of like the retelling of Adam and Eve when you look at it there.
Yeah, essentially that's what this story is. It's just kind of a
Mhm.
different take on it.
Yeah, but the thing is, the question is, did he get kicked out afterwards for eating the apple, or this diagram of the apple there, or were there no repercussions?
Well, they didn't get into that, but I'm sure it's basically paralleled.
Oh wow! So it's like a parallel universe of that particular story. Needless to say.
Yeah,
Hmm. Interesting subject there. One of these days we got to look into parallel universes. I know that's been talked about a lot of times.
and actually, now that you mentioned it, there was one of those
Hmm.
hour-long episodes called "The Parallel," which is about an
Oh,
astronaut that when he comes back to Earth, it's different, but it's little wee things, but it's different, and he's different. Everybody around him's different, but not totally. I mean, they're the same people, but they're just little things that are different. And he figures out that he had mistakenly landed in a parallel universe, and that his counterpart landed in his universe. And essentially, the episode's about him figuring out how he could get back. But it went into what you're talking about in the parallel type universe.
yes, I see there. All right. I'm looking at this one episode called The Brain Center at Whipple's. The Brain Center, it's directed by, of course, Richard Donner, and it is, let's see here, guest appearances by Paul Newland, not Newman. It's this one, this one is spelled Newlan, and a couple of people I don't really know. One of them is Richard Deacon. I don't know much about it. In 1967, Wallace V. Whipple, the owner of a vast Midwestern Manufacturing Corporation decides to upgrade his plant to increase output by installing a machine named the X1109B14 modified transition totally automatic assembly machine, which leads to tens of thousands of layoffs of their employment. It led to a lot of layoffs of their employees and such. You remember all the talk about McDonald's installing these ordering machines?
Yeah. Similar.
Very similar, and all of the and that of course came about when everybody demanded $15 an hour for their work and such. And of course, McDonald's responded by installing some of these ordering machines. In fact, one of the Mickey D's near us has one, believe it or not, but they
Oh,
still have the employees behind the counter there to take your order. So people do have an option to choose the human or the machine there when you think about it. Now, some former employees tried to convince him that the value of a man outweighs the value of a machine, but their protests fall on, of course, deaf ears. The plant manager, Mr. Hanley, reminds him that Whipple's father, who ran the factory for 40 years while profit driven, had a sense of responsibility to his factory workers and their pride for their work. Whipple coldly responds that while his father only doubled this factory production, his competitors what's that word?
quadruple.
Quadrupled there. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Dickinson, an angry veteran foreman, tries to smash a machine but is shot and injured by Whipple, while Hanley visits Dickinson in the hospital. Whipple is only concerned about his equipment. Hanley confronts Whipple about it and is similarly fired for being shown the re- being replaced by the machine.
Right.
Whipple proceeds to replace secretaries with automated dictation machines, thinking that power room breaks and maternity leave are inconveniences. Now, Whipple fires all of his human employees, replacing them with machines, which in turn, which then later turn on him by spilling out the harsh, demeaning recording party words of his former employees back at him over and over, driving Whipple to insanity. Eventually, the board of directors find him neurotically obsessed with machines and retire him. Whipple joins Hanley at the bar opposite his old factory and expresses deep sorrow at his misfortune as he rambles about how it isn't fair that machines are replacing men, his poetic justice for caring more about machines in the first place. He also admits he's lonely because he is not married, has no family, and he feels cast aside like a used part. And the last scene reveals Whipple's replacement to be a robot, which, by the way, is Robbie the robot from the movie Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
You may remember that movie there. In fact, I don't know why didn't get this on video. There's I saw at Walmart today an actual little light up, walking, talking,
Oh man.
Robbie the robot next to the Iron Giant from the animated movie of the same name.
Huh. That might have been an interesting little find.
Wow, interesting. It would be interesting. First I would love to see Forbidden Planet in its entirety, and then I would like to definitely check it out, getting that a particular item there. I'm also looking at possibly getting me either I guess the dark saber that was featured in the Mandalorian, a couple of the animated Star Wars series there, like Rebels and the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely want to. I'm thinking about something like that, man. That's for sure. Hmm. Wow, interesting.
Well, like I said, there's other episodes here. I just, off the top of my head, I can't really say, okay, this is one we need to talk about
Oh,
because I'm trying to
absolutely.
remember what they are. I have seen all of them, but I don't.
I'm just reading off the storylines from the and many other episodes as well. You know, because there's a lot to cover here, and there's folks. As much as we love sci-fi, also bring your thinking cap with you when you watch these episodes. Okay,
Oh yeah,
especially the ones that we mentioned. Bring your thinking skills with you.
because you're going to need them. This is a very a thought-provoking series.
Absolutely, you know, and it kind of like teaches us all the things that are some of the things that are going on in this world when you look at it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can be tied parallel to this world and the things that are going on.
That's true.
Because when you face it, history doesn't change. The historic events will repeat themselves.
Yeah,
In
and
fact,
if
one of the most famous expressions I can remember, and I don't remember where I heard it, was those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
we've heard that many times before. Yep, and it also went along earlier this year, you know, with all the people, you know, screaming for for socialism, you know, down with screw Donald Trump here and there, and all that kind of jazz there. I mean, when you think about it, it's kind of like almost repeated itself, you know,
Yeah,
especially with the turning all the statues at universities being torn down because in their eyes, people's eyes, it represents racism. You know, a lot of times I was even told that a lot of times some of these schools now don't teach American history, but the history of their own state that they're in.
yeah.
And that's, folks, we need to learn American history no matter what, you know, because we don't want to be any of these dimwits that is approached by Jamie Waters from that Fox News show, you know, being asked questions. Are you aware of this? What do you know about this event or that particular event? And be like, duh, 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 don't know anything about it because we were not taught that.
Well, and
Edu-
basically, you don't want to do just American history, but you want to learn world history.
Correct.
To
Learn
live in a
all of it.
I was lucky enough to live in a time that all this was taught.
Absolutely. Learn all this. We learn about this in high school as well. You know, kids, get your education, all right? That's the sum of it. And like we said before, bring your thinking cap when you watch these episodes that we all mentioned.
Yeah, and there are lighthearted episodes, but
Many others as well that we even touched up that have a lot to say.
yeah, and they do have their lighthearted episodes here and there that are fun to watch just because they're fun to watch.
No, no, I was
But
looking for the one that starred Carol Burnett a while ago.
I think it's
I
Ring a
don't know,
Ding Girl, number
Ring a Ding,
133.
number 130. Let me see here. 33. Mr. Let's see. No, it's not that. That's
133.
133. There we go. And that's the episode number, I think it is.
Yeah,
Ring a Ding Girl, yes. Got it
I
right here.
think that was her. I think that's the movie, but I'm not sure.
Let's see. It starred, let's see. Bunny Blake, actress, film
Oh
actress.
no, this is a good episode. I remember this one.
Oh, yeah. All right.
This isn't the Carol Burnett episode, but this is a
Okay.
very good episode. It's
I
about a
see.
lady from a small town that went off and became famous, and she suddenly showed up at the day the town was going to have their town picnic, and
Yes.
essentially she told everybody, you know what, I'm going to have a special show at the theater, and I'd like everybody to come. And it was like, oh, but what about our town picnic and all of that stuff? And they decided, well, essentially what happened was they decided the sister decided to go to the thing instead of the picnic for her coming home thing, and she got as many people as she could to go to this. And what turned out happening was an airplane that was going ahead crashed into the picnic, and this lady Bunny was on that plane,
Hmm.
and she basically saved her sister and her family's lives by deciding, you know what, I'm going to replace the come on, I'm going to replace the picnic with my own show, and they'll go to that. and everybody that went to the show was spared because the plane crashed right on the picnic.
Wow. Something there. That's a trip, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the one that you were talking about. I know it's.
In the meantime, I found this one. It's entitled The Last Night of a Jockey, and it starred Mickey Rooney.
Oh yeah, that was a good one
Oh,
too.
yeah. And the story is, a jockey named Grady is lying alone in his room after being banned from horse racing for life for fixing races by doping the horses. He drinks in his depression and rules by his 5 foot height. He is a short guy and he hates that, which horse
Right.
riding had served to the contempt for. He later hears a voice. The voice introduces himself as his alter ego and claims to live in Grady's head. He argues with his alter ego, trying to justify his life and his actions, even lying about his crimes, but the alter ego knows all about him. Grady is offered a chance to change his life with one wish, and Grady says his wish is to be big. After Grady wakes from a nap, he finds his wish has been granted. He's now close to 8 feet tall. That's a little too big there, Dan.
Yeah.
Ecstatic, he calls his ex-girlfriend over the phone, but she dismisses him. He boasts that he could find more gals who appreciate him because of his newfound height. The alter ego remains unimpressed, feeling that Grady hasn't made any good of his promises. He rides his dump and cheap wish, and says that Grady would have wished Kentucky Derby fairly,
Yeah.
or to perform a heroic act. A phone call calls from the racing commission, informs Grady that he has been reinstated and can jockey again. Grady frankly thanks everyone who petitioned to give him a second chance, but the alter ego laughs at him. Grady realizes he has become more larger, about 10 feet tall, to ride a horse, and to
Right.
properly fill in his own apartment. Devastated and now humongous, Grady wrecks his room and pleads with the alter ego to make him small again, which, by the way, the request was denied, and instead replies, "You are small, Mr. Grady. You see, every time you won an honest race, that's when you were a giant. But right now, they just don't come any smaller."
Yeah. That was a good episode. It was a one man episode essentially.
Yeah, exactly. It was. He was the only actor on that series there when you think about it, on that episode, when you think about it.
Yeah. I haven't found that Carol Burnett episode yet.
I'm still trying to find it myself there. Son of a name go. Maybe I should probably, let me just try and do this here.
Well, if you look up Carol Burnett, it'll mention it.
Let me here, give it a few minutes, folks, here. Carol Burnett, Twilight Zone. Here we go. I think I found it here. It's Caballero is Coming. It was
Oh, okay.
season 3, episode 36. An angel played by Jesse White can earn his wings by helping a down on her luck woman. And eventually, the woman played by Carol Burnett, her name is well, let's hear. There we go. To Angus Crept, a clumsy woman routinely fired from work from her for her antics. She is supposed to improve her life in 24 hours so he can earn his wings. He has taken longer than any other angel to do so. Failure in this case means demotion. Now, Cavalier appears alongside Agnes and her bus ride home. He tries to prove that he is her guardian angel by changing the bus into a horse and then to a buggy, then a convertible, and finally back to a bus. Once at home, Angus is greeted by cookie-loving kids and neighbors who sympathize with her ongoing work woes. As she enters her apartment, she finds Cavalier on the couch. On the couch, my bad. I got to do something about my pronunciation of words for some reason.
With
He provides her a mansion, high society friends, large bank account to fund it all. But instead of bowling, her former social high school point, her social high point, she finds herself hosting a lavish party. She is uncomfortably overwhelmed by the high society chatter, largely incomprehensible to her, and the affections of the men. Caballero, meanwhile, indulges himself in the alcohol drinks. Now, angels are not supposed to drink, I understand, right?
well, I would say so. Yeah.
Now, the angel wakes up in a mansion couch. He does not see Angus anywhere and zaps himself into her old apartment where she glumly tells him that none of her old apartment neighbors recognize her. She tells him she does not want to go back to the mansion and wants her old life back. Caballero that argues against the idea, but then finally gives in and zaps her back to her normal life. With excitement, she greets, jokes with all her old friends. She thanks Cavalier and realizes that she is the richest woman I know, that money does not necessarily equal happiness. Cavalier in the end goes up to see his boss, who rebukes him for his behavior at the party and making no change in Agnes's life. However, looking down on Earth, the boss sees that though her circumstances have not been changed, she is now happy. He realizes Cavalier did complete his mission by making Agnes appreciate what she has instead of being demoted, he will help with other deserving suspects. Cavalier takes out a cigar and happily leaves the Third Celestial Division Angel Placement. Guess that's what it's called there.
Yeah.
I guess there's another lesson to learn about that when
Well,
sometimes
that's
about money can't buy you happiness.
well. See, that's the thing that was really good about the Twilight Zone for the most part is most episodes were teaching lessons. You may not realize it, but upon retrospect, you kind of look and go, "Oh, I was supposed to learn this," and you figure out what it was, or it just had a nice little twist in it that made the episode interesting.
Yeah, that's right. Serling has been known to do that. All right. I think have we covered everything on this topic so far? Because I believe
Well,
we all went through all 5 seasons. I guess.
well, we did, but we didn't cover everything, obviously. But we covered
Yeah,
probably major points, and hopefully,
yeah, we
we
have.
spurred people that haven't seen the Twilight Zone binge watch it sometime. Sci-fi
And
does
reruns.
well. Yeah, not only that, they have marathons. Generally during some holidays, I don't recall which ones, but
I see.
I would suggest if you could get your hands on it to start at season one, episode one, and just go through it in order. Although it's not technically necessary to go through it in order, but because they don't follow each other. But that way you can kind of keep track and see the episodes all the way through. And
And
again,
like we
like I
said,
said, that there will be
bring your
some,
thinking cap, folks.
and there will be pleasant surprises.
Yeah, Bloom. Absolutely. Now we also had now there was of course as you know around 1985 there was the revamped version that aired on the same network CBS.
Yeah.
One episode I remember particularly was called "A Small Talent for War," and let me look this up here.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not that familiar with that season other than one or two episodes that I kind of remember. But yeah, I
yeah,
don't
I remember
remember the
that
years,
one
but
as
they did
well.
it twice. They did one in the
And this
80s.
was in and this was back in 1985, 86 when they relaunched the series there.
Yeah.
Now, an ambassador, John Grover, from an alien race arrives and claims that his race has genetically engineered the people of Earth. He tells the members of the United Nations Security Council that his race is displeased with the Earthlings' small talent for war. as they have failed to produce any potential that the aliens have nurtured. When the ambassador announces that his fleet will destroy all life on Earth, the Security Council pleads and is granted the 24 hours to reprieve and prove Earth's worthiness. With the survival of humanity at stake, the Security Council and the General Assembly negotiate an accord for everlasting global peace and presented it to the alien ambassador. The global peace agreement brings great humor to the ambassador. The aliens were, in fact, seeking a greater talent for war, as they had genetically seeded thousands of planets to breed warriors to fight for them across the galaxy. Humanity's small talent for war, crude weapons, petty bickering over borders, is simply not enough to be any of use to them. And he laughingly states, worst of all, that the people of Earth long for peace. As the ambassador calls down his fleet to destroy the Earth, he thanks the Security Council for a amusing day and their delightful sense of the absurd. His parting comment is, as your fine Earth actors, Edmund Gwen once said, dying is easy, comedy is hard.
Yeah.
That's the one I remember, basically. But it kind of, that's pretty much the only one I really was able to see, unfortunately. There were, I know there were others, Bruce.
There
There
were
were
others I'm
others
pretty
that I
sure I
went,
saw, but I don't remember them. But there were
yeah,
several of them I do remember. I just don't, I can't tell you about them.
that's true. And of course, we have the one on CBS All Access, which stars Jordan Peele in the Sterling's role there as the narrator.
Yeah. And
I've
then
yet to see
they
any
had
of
one
that.
in 2002, I believe it was. That I do remember one episode of that, and
Hmm.
the name of it was Evergreen, and essentially the story is about a rebellious teenage girl, Amber Tamblyn, and her exasperated family, and they moved to a gated community with a stringent emphasis on conforming to certain norms, and they have a unique way of dealing with troubled youth. Which the reason I remember that episode is you definitely got the impression they basically killed her off and made her uh, fertilizer to fertilize the
Yeah,
trees they had there, and that's the way
yeah.
they took care of them.
All right. So definitely, I'm looking up this guy Jordan Peele because I haven't heard of him myself. He's an American actor, voice actor, comedian, writer, director, and producer. He is also known for his television and film work in the comedy and horror genres. And of course, he is now the current host of the Twilight Zone on CBS All Access, as we mentioned there.
Wow.
Mhm. All right. And he was also inducted to the Times 100 list of most influential people in the world. Yeah. And he also wrote and directed and produced the horror movie Us in 2019. So he's been a lot. He's been busy a lot, as you can see there, man.
Oh yeah.
And he's also married to a well-respected comedian. Her name is let's see there. Her name is Chelsea. What the fuck is her name is? Chelsea Peretti. They married in 2013. They actually started dating that year. They became engaged 2 years later, and they have eloped. They have a son named Bill Beaumont, born in 2017 there. And that's pretty much it. Now, Chelsea, by the way, if you remember the show World's Dumbest that was on True TV, she was one of the panels up there alongside Danny Bonaducci, Frank Stallone, and Leif Garrett. There you go. All
Yeah.
right. So that's I guess that pretty much ends.
Yeah, that's as far
Uh,
as we are going to go to cover it, but that's we could do another episode. But
all right.
you kind of got the gist of what we were talking about.
Absolutely there. Yeah. And like I said, this is one of the most defined TV series in the sci-fi genre, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
And then the most often referred to thing when things are going crazy in your household there, like, what am I in the Twilight Zone or what?
Yeah.
How many times have we heard parents or friends or coworkers use that reference a lot of times?
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed you used Nightmare 20,000 Feet for your thumbnail, and
Yes, I have.
I used To Serve Man.
All right, nice. Interesting there. I like using certain thumbnails related to the topic that we're talking about here, usually for this series here. There.
Yeah.
All right. So does this cover our look at the Twilight Zone, or do you want to do a part three?
No. Le-
Okay.
uh, well, let's talk about it.
Okay. Yes.
Because if I do a little research and I find enough to worth talking about, yeah, part three would be good.
Okay. Definitely. If we'll do a part three, then we'll definitely most do it for Shizzle. There.
Okay.
Uh,
And I guess we're off until tomorrow night when we'll do the Rolling Stones, which will start
Yep.
6 Eastern, 5 Central.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because of my stint with Real as Fuck TV. Hopefully this time there'll be no more issues like we had last Thursday there. But that because that what happened that time didn't really set in too well with me.
Yeah. Well, okay.
All right, yeah. All right. So that's going to do it for today. This is our second look at the Twilight Zone series there.
We may or may
And
not do a third one. If we don't, we'll have another show.
all right. Well, we'll let you know. Well, we'll let you know ahead of time. Actually, I'll probably post it on Twitter, and also one more thing I want to say here before you get off the air. I got a job interview tomorrow at 10 in the morning. Wish me luck, Arknolia.
All right.
Wish me
Hope it
lots
goes
of luck, and
well.
everybody. All right. Thank you very much. After being out of work for so many months, hopefully I get the job here. All
Okay.
right. All right. Thank you very much for everybody for listening and watching the show there. For Agnolia, myself, you guys have a good one there. All right.
All right. Talk to everybody later.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.
All right.
Yeah, it's having a heck of a time stopping it here, but it finally did.
I know. Do we wish? There we go.